Hi, everyone. Still got some people filing in the back. It's okay. Give you a few seconds before we get cooking here. Well, as people are taking their seats, I'm George Kutnarian, co-founder, president, and CEO of Wellpointe. I'd like to welcome you to New York. It's probably at this point in the day the nth time you've been welcomed, but I did a master's at Columbia, not horribly far from here, so I'd like to personally welcome you, and always good to find a reason to come back to New York, and speaking at CamundaCon is certainly a great reason to be here. Yes, thank you. Wellpointe. So what does Wellpointe do? Wellpointe delivers affordable, boutique-style, residential, assisted living, and related healthcare services to high-acuity older adults with chronic illnesses through a coordinated and integrated system of care. As you can see, we've been on the Inc. 5000 list 3 years in a row. I always quip, it's hard to make the list, it's hard to stay on the list, and it's hardest to climb the list. So as you can see, we're in scale-up mode. And there's nothing like a scale-up to really expose your most vexing bottlenecks. And when it comes to bottlenecks, linear growth only exposes dull pain. It's annoying, but overall tolerable. You treat it with, minor incremental changes, but nothing crazy. Nonlinear growth, well, that's like blunt force trauma. It's very painful, okay? And it really forces you to rethink everything. Your processes and the technology that you're gonna use, everything, you have to be willing to take it back down to the ground level, down to the studs, for a real estate analogy. And so this is showing our location growth. And I'm not showing it to you just so we can highlight what our location growth looks like. It's to really highlight that traditionally we've been a location-based business. And in that sense, I've always said that Wellpointe has traditionally been operating at the intersection of healthcare and real estate. But then about 3 years ago, we really started investing in technology and really a lot of different SaaS solutions that we envisioned as foundational building blocks for our growth. And so, and then as we did that nonlinear growth really exposed those pain points. And we saw that we had some gaps. The gaps were really around idiosyncratic use cases and workflows that were not addressed by off-the-shelf products. And so that really forced us to rethink our own role as it related to technology. Were we going to just continue to consume third-party off-the-shelf products or rely on consultants to build things for us, or we're going to actually build our own technology and really address our own challenges? And we come from an industry where there's a class of consultants, and I know there's a lot of consultants here, but we come from an industry where consultants tell us to mind our own business and don't worry about the tech and just run your core business. But tech is our business. We can't just ignore that. And so we had to take matters into our own hands and basically control our own destiny. And we did that by spinning up our own internal innovation unit called Wellpointe Labs. We recruited Terry Camerlengo here from Nationwide Financial to be our director of technology, and really grab the bull by the horn, so to speak, so that we can continue on this journey and control our own destiny. And in that sense, we've shifted to operating at the intersection of healthcare, real estate, and technology. So we're becoming more multidimensional as an organization. So, preparedness and opportunities. So one of the big things we did was sign on with Camunda, and we've only been a customer for just over a year. So it's been a new ride for us, but a really good one. But it was a huge technological, big shift for us. And in fact, we brought on Max Young and his team at Cap BPM to help us out, to put our best foot forward as it related to our Camunda deployment and our Camunda journey. And when we brought on Cap BPM, we actually didn't have Terry Camerlengo even on board yet as a technology director. So I can't emphasize enough how important it was for us to have a really good partner with us. I can confidently say if we made a wrong choice on the partner, I don't think we'd be standing here and sharing what we're sharing with you today. And that brings us to the first use case. And again, it was all brought to bear from the scale-up mode, exposing those really powerful or really painful pain points. And so medication management, specifically order management. And if you were at the keynote, I kind of spilled the beans a little bit and already highlighted that. But why medication? Why is it so painful? Well, let me do a little compare-contrast. I'm 42 years old, I'm relatively healthy, and I take 2 medications. Compare that to the average Wellpointe resident who's 81 years old, has multiple chronic illnesses, and takes 20 medications a day. That's what we're dealing with, and the numbers add up very quickly. And the statuses of these medications are not static, they're dynamic. You have new orders, you have dosage changes, you have discontinuations, you have distinct orders within larger orders, so it also gets complex. And then exacerbating this pain point was the conscious decision that we made to centralize the responsibility of order management as opposed to decentralizing it across multiple people. And that was a decision made around consideration for quality. After all, we're dealing with medications that treat chronic illnesses, we're a regulated industry, so when it comes to medications, quality is non-negotiable. But we needed scale as well. And that was the conundrum, the traditional trade-off between quality and scale. We wanted both. We wanted quality at scale. And then let's also sprinkle in some personalization at scale. This is where compassion at scale comes in. The adult children of our residents, they want to know changes to their loved ones' medication regimens, and ideally, they want to know this in real time. So could we execute quality at scale with real-time communication for our residents and their families? And this is version 1 of what it looks like. And this is the real process. It's not fictitious, it's the real deal. It's an animation, but this is the real process. And this is what we refer to as a medication order management system, or what we affectionately in our company call MOMS. And the entire process is kicked off with a medication order in an inbox. So it's very event-driven. It's not batch processing of medication orders. Every time an order hits a designated inbox, it kicks off a process. The order gets extracted. It goes to AWS Bedrock. Claude Sonnet reads it there. And I think right there, the fact that we're able to decipher these medication orders right off the bat, we're transcending the traditional proprietary roadblocks and API roadblocks that are so common in healthcare services. No worrying about, oh, well, does the doctor use the same system that we use? Or does the doctor's system have an open API? With this process, we've made that irrelevant. All we really care about is the source information, which is the medication order itself, which comes on a PDF document. Now I'm going to hand it over to Terry. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the specific process details.
Thank you very much, George. Hello, everyone. I'm Terry Camerlengo, Director of Technology at Wellpointe. I have to say, this is a very large room. It's a little nervous sitting up here with all this. I hope I do okay. So this is the process that George just explained. And if you see, it's annotated right now with the amount of time it would take a staff member to do each one of these steps manually. So our goal was to obviously automate as much of this as possible. So for instance, sending out an SMS notification might take a couple minutes. Copying documents to a document management system, that's 3 minutes. All in all, if you add it all up on average, it's about 15 to 16 minutes for one medication order from beginning to end. That's entering it into the EMR, the whole thing. Now, this system was deployed in a limited geographic area with about approximately 150 to 160 residents. So if you start thinking about the math, that comes out to about 3 hours a day, and just that limited deployment. And we are growing rapidly. We have other locations. So if you scale this out just a little bit to say 1,000 residents, you're talking 24, 25 hours a day just to manage medications. And we knew that was not maintainable. So we wanted to automate it. And that's what we use Camunda for. So question really was, what does success look like? Like what are we looking for? How do we define success? And one of the core KPIs that we tracked was something called process pass, process failure rates. Now, what is a process failure? What is a process pass? These are steps where in the process, at some point, there has to be some manual intervention, like something couldn't complete, a person had to get involved. What it isn't, I'll be clear, what it isn't is not like we prescribe the wrong medication or the wrong diagnostic code. So like if a resident had a prescription for, say, 1 ibuprofen taken as needed for pain, there's no possibility that that would be transcribed as like, 400 milligrams of Eliquis, I believe, which would be really, really bad. So like all those types of validations are done way upstream at the clinician. Like it would never flow down to this. So if you notice this chart, we start out, when we first deployed it, 50% of our processes failed. So what would a failure be? Failure would be something like we have all these systems we're integrating. So maybe in one system you have a name like John Hughes or something, and then in the other system it's Johnny Jr. And the RPA robot couldn't find that person in the other system, so it just stops. And what this really taught us is that we had some data consistency issues. And it really helped us shore up our own internal processes to make sure that the data between systems had integrity. And we've really hit a steady state, I think, in August and September at about 15% failure, 85% pass. Now, we actually believe that using agentic AI, we could even get these numbers better. Like for instance, if you have, say, an improper address, like Main Street is spelled Main Street with S-T-R-E-E-T instead of S-T, that would right now blow up in our RPA. But with agentic AI, we might be able to improve that and say, hey, the system will go and look and say, hey, the RPA failed, but maybe it's a bad address. Maybe this is a good correction, and we try that. So we believe that with agentic orchestration, we can improve this number even more. So one other takeaway is even in the situations where a process doesn't complete, we still are booking a savings. So depending on where in the process it fails. So if it fails at the very beginning of the process, we don't get much savings. But if it fails towards the end, we're still saving, manual effort. So we actually calculate how many hours in this limited geographic distribution we're saving. And you could see in September, we spiked up to 45 hours for that month. And it just turns out that even in a failed situation, we're still saving about 9 minutes on an average order. And if it's totally successful, it could be in between 15 and 20. So that's really, I think, really, really good news. I mean, I think that's really great. And that'll only get better as we deploy to a larger audience. So there's like 2 key takeaways I'd like to share that I thought were really, I think really represent why Camunda and BPM were such great technologies for our use case. First is, I already kind of touched on, it's data integration. We have these different systems, we're trying to coordinate data flow between them, and BPM allowed us to, it really allowed us to identify the data integrity issues. So that was a big win. The second one was, I think, just how effective BPM is in bringing in the stakeholders into the process. So an experience that I had, we were doing a little process optimization, and we're sitting in the room, and we have the process projected on a screen, and our co-founder and executive vice president, Angela Cutinarian, who's in the front stage, walks into the room, looks at the board and says, oh, I know your problem. You have to move this step, which was the SMS step, to the beginning of the process. And then she explained why this was important. And we did that, and it really worked, and to this day, that's where it lives. Now, the thing that I reflected on after that was, if we had, instead of a business process, say a bunch of UML diagrams with use cases and sequence diagrams and S3 events, it would have probably taken a domain expert 20 or 30 minutes just to understand what all the technical iconography meant to tease out what the business process was. But by exposing the business process, she was able to see instantly and collaborate and contribute to the design and the architecture of our solution. And I think that's really promising. And I think because of that reason, we plan on making BPM core part of our business expansion, our technical expansion. So with that, thank you. And I'll hand it off to George, and he's going to talk about the future. So here you go.
Thank you. All right. So let's talk a little bit more about kind of the future, how this scales. I talked about those bottlenecks, the painful bottlenecks that really a scale-up exposes. And we previously identified that for us, it's medications. If we don't solve the problem of how to handle medication orders at volume, at scale, then we can't actually grow our business the way we want to grow our business. And so this system is the foundation for that future, for that growth. We can see how this could scale potentially in the future. 1,000 residents, 20,000 meds, 10,000 residents, 200,000 meds, 50,000 residents, 1 million meds. That's totally possible with a system like this. This is all about becoming future ready to address the aging population in the US and around the globe, although we're US focused. And then just to recap, here's the process again today. One thing I did want to highlight about this process, which is end-to-end automation. My favorite automation is the SMS message at the end of the process, which provides the date, the doctor's name, the name of the medication, the strength, how often it should be given, and what it's for. And all of that is done hands-free. There isn't any person who actually types any part of that message in, and that message is also without RPA. And so that's my favorite part of the automation, because I think that's the piece that a lot of this generates internal value for us, but it's that last piece with that communication to the customer's loved one, that's customer value. And so that's the part that really particularly excites me. And while this process is really great, has improved efficiency and capability, it is still very linear and deterministic and represents just a single use case. So let's talk about kind of what the to-be system in the future will look like. So the other one was the actual real process. This is a little more fictitious representation of a more expansive system that could span multiple processes using the same inputs, however. And so we envision an agent sitting kind of as a universal receiver, where it accepts orders and information and then executes one or more processes that it's supposed to execute. Now, it's still very human intensive, still deterministic, because we're the ones dictating what all of these rules are. And so there's a lot of human effort that goes into writing the rule engine that would do something like this for us. That's the next step. But there's also so much more, there's also a lot of potential here. Potential to capture not only the beginning or end of the medication experience for a resident, but to capture the entire journey. The orders, the refills, could be discontinuation of an order, to capture as necessary medications and to monitor ongoing effectiveness and more. And enter the promise of agentic AI, a more dynamic process where agentic AI determines the appropriate processes to run, when to run them, and to do that with more contextual information as opposed to very rigid rules. And in that way, we're really looking to move more to a model that I would call hybrid intelligence, because you can layer in your own proprietary know-how that you have within your organization. What's, your secret sauce, if you will. Leading companies all have know-how internally, and being able to marry that with AI to form a hybrid intelligence model, that's what's going to allow companies to develop competitive moats around their business. And now I'm going to have Max talk a little bit about agentic orchestration.
Hi, everyone. My name is Max Young. I am the CEO of CAP BPM. We are the Platinum Partner of the Year with Camunda for 2024 and 2025 for the American continent. We're lucky enough to be working with George and Angela and the Wellpointe team on this. I want to start out by saying that within this adventure, within the things that George wanted to be able to do, the important parts of this are not CAP BPM, and at the risk of offending, not really even Camunda, right? The hero of this story is the customer. The hero of the story is the people who are providing healthcare for the people who are out there. We are a mechanism to do that. Camunda more so a mechanism to do that. So the important part about all this, the way that you should think about agentic orchestration is, imagine that you have a robot, and you've trained this robot to go into your kitchen and cook dinner for you. It makes 3 meals. It makes salmon, a steak, and pasta, right? It knows exactly how to go into your kitchen. It knows how to open the pantry, pull out the flour, cook things at just the right degree. That's great. You've automated it. It's cheaper than having a personal chef. That's your traditional automation journey. The problem is that if the flour is just a little bit off, if the fish is bad, the robot wouldn't know, wouldn't be able to adjust. How do you resolve this? You have a bunch of little robots, and they have discrete, smaller jobs. One just gets stuff from the pantry. One just knows how to saute onions. One knows just how to cook fish. One knows how to order new items for you. And on top of it all, you have a maitre d' robot. He's standing back, and he's orchestrating these guys to achieve what you want. Now you don't get 3 meals. You get everything that you want. And if there's something out there that isn't on your original menu, you can add a new, smaller robot that does just that thing. So what you've basically done, just out of a show of hands, how many people here are engineers or mathy people? Okay, enough that you'll get this metaphor. Imagine that you have an XY coordinate, right? 2 dimensions. That's your traditional BPMN systems. Now imagine that a Y has been added. And all of a sudden, it's not just X and Y, but an infinite amount of variation that you can have with this process. Infinite, literally infinite amount of depth that you can have to be able to tell your story. What I really like about this is this ability to help customers achieve the visions that they have and be a small part of the success that they achieve when they're doing good things for the world. The way that I see this is that our role in this, we are not the Muhammad Ali. We are the Angelo Dundee. Our customers are the Muhammad Alis. And that's what we want to enable by helping them know how to do this thing that they can do wonderful things in that are beyond us because we don't have their domain expertise. We need customers who are hungry and innovative for change, who are willing to take a chance and try some new things like Georgia was. And they need us to help them reach that tactically. Once they do that, then there's another opportunity behind the opportunity. Right? In our world, in the business world, we always talk about opportunity cost. But I like to think about opportunity. I didn't see this opportunity because this other one was blocking it. I achieved the first one. Now I see something bigger and more ambitious and more nuanced. And I'm really excited about that. I'm excited to help bring that to Wellpointe. I'm excited for Wellpointe bringing that to hundreds and thousands and hopefully tens of thousands of patients. I think it's a good thing to be doing. I think that in the professional world, it makes me feel like I'm part of a noble purpose. Okay, that's the talk for now. I think we have a couple of questions. If I really like your questions, I'll give you some cool swag. Let's start out here. Terry, I'm going to ask you to answer this question. what were some ancillary benefits that were non-obvious when you first implemented your solution?
Yeah. So I think we kind of talked to that. I think, the failure rate going down, the process failure rate going down, and the data integration consistency being solved. Yeah, so I think those are the big benefits that we had. And also, as we're planning out other processes, we can see how they link into this one. So we're already mapping out expansions of this into other,
I mean, I'll elaborate a little bit. I think I got this. I'll elaborate a little bit. It was things that we were identifying, like errors from previous manual work. So, like for example, an order was saved with the wrong file naming convention. So the process failed because it was programmed to pick up a certain file name protocol, and that wasn't entered in properly. Things like that. Something was saved in the wrong location. So it was this discovery of these previous manual errors that then also allowed us to kind of go back and clean some of that stuff too, clean that stuff up. And then of course in the future, those are probably like those manual tasks themselves will probably become more automated in the future as well. But that's what we started to see. Once we started to plateau on the pass versus failure rate, all those failures were really not the system anymore. It was really previous manual tasks, like legacy tasks that were still in the system.
Nice. Is it yet a part of the MOM process in production or still under experimentation? What's missing is the agentic stuff. Is it part of what you're actually putting into MOMs? Is it still in pre-production?
Yeah.
How soon do you expect to get there?
Yeah, I think the agentic's not in there yet in terms of the IDP. We are leveraging AI for that with AWS Bedrock and Claude Sonnet, like I mentioned, and so reading the orders. Now we have a limited number of physicians' orders that we're reading just to kind of be able to manage that. The idea is to then expand into be able to accept orders from more physicians and be able to accurately read those. And then agentic's going to come as we kind of move along a little bit in a subsequent phase.
I actually want to weigh in on that from a technical perspective. If you have C8 solutions that are more linear and you want to move to agentic, it's actually pretty easy. You just put an ad hoc process in, and you start moving those specific elements into there, and you write an LLM that actually uses what you already have. That's your first step, right? That's a little bit like just getting up in the morning and driving to the gym. If you do that much, it's already a victory.
Yeah, and I think for us, what we're really excited about is the opportunity to, as I was talking about, was kind of layering in our own internal know-how. There's a lot of institutional knowledge within our organization that we believe gives us a competitive advantage. And so, but as people, that knowledge and that know-how, it's very intensive to scale that. And so we kind of view it as like AI is kind of the muscle or the horsepower. Let's say you have like a foundational model and it does like 85% of the heavy lifting, and then you just sprinkle in your know-how, and then all of a sudden that's kind of your model. Yeah. And then that's kind of, basically you're creating a competitive advantage by doing that. So I really believe companies have to merge their know-how with AI. It's not just AI on its own, AI by itself, figuring everything out. And I think the companies that can do that, they're going to win in the marketplace.